Welcome to Building Your Leader Brand. Today on the show, Bob is speaking with Kerry Burchill.
So when you meet with clients or when you talk with people about their pain points, we instantly go into, oh my goodness, how can I help them? What can I do to be of service? And that's the response mode, which is tricky because if we're not actively listening, so, they can share their pain points. And if I'm not engaging back on that, then the person talking is really not having a space to develop their awareness and acceptance that they need my help.
Hi there, and welcome back to Building Your Leader Brand. This week, I'm really excited. I say that every week. And then I say this every week, and I really am. But today I really am, because I get to welcome my friend Kerry Burchill to the show. Kerry, welcome.
Thank you so much, Bob. I'm equally excited.
We've known each other for years. I don't know how many years. We've been in masterminds together. We've been at conferences together. I don't know if we've had dinner, but we probably have. And I think it was a couple of months ago now, something happened. And I thought, okay, it's time to have Kerry on the show, because my wife's turned to me after scrolling, I think it was TikTok, and she said, do you know what an ask hole is? And I thought, you know what? I kind of do. And I proceeded to tell her that I knew exactly what an ask hole was and who it was that coined the term. It's Kerry Burchill coined the term, the ask hole and the ask hole trap, and has literally written the book. And we're going to get into all of that today. So Kerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So for the listener who's meeting you for the first time, can you maybe just start by telling us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what it is you actually do?
Yeah, awesome. So I am Kerry Burchill. I live in Texas currently. I'm originally from Western Canada. And my career background really has just taken some turns that I would never have expected in my 20s when I finished my first bachelor's degree in education. I was a middle school teacher in a couple of years, got administrative roles. And then in my 30s, just felt like my life had become a little bit too comfortable. I am not able to have children, which, gives you a little bit of freedom, arguably, to chase some things. And so my partner and I kind of said, let's put some rods in the fire and see what happens. So I applied for a principalship on a NATO base, and he applied for med school. Yeah. So long story short, at age 39, he started medical school. I say we did medical school. And that took us on a journey of 2 years in the Caribbean, a couple of years in New York City, Detroit, Baltimore, and then rural Illinois, and now San Antonio, Texas. So in that, I started being exposed to just a ton of different leadership things. Got a second master's, did my PhD in educational leadership. So I had this sort of merging of experiences and academic training to think through how leaders need to show up to be successful and to thrive. And I was certainly exposed to some really dysfunctional leadership, like in New York City. I don't know, Bob, if you know this about New York, but their Department of Education is 1 million children and 100,000 teachers. And of course, as an immigrant, I got, put in the schools that nobody wanted to work in. Teachers called 911 during class change. The school was just so broken. And the principals were just incapable. Like it was crazy. And so I started seeing how structures drive behavior. And, fast forward to now, I've been on my own since 2018, full-time on my own since 21, and really helping leaders develop structures that help their employees and teams thrive. So my catch line, which I probably like yours, evolves. I think right now it's something like, I help leaders and teams in messy, dynamic situations slow down to achieve ambitious goals. Super fun. I feel so excited to have my work. It's just crazy.
So you wrote a book, and I remember when you coined this term, ask hole. For the listener, maybe explain how this came about. What's the book about? And who is it for?
Yeah. And you alluded to this in the intro. I got ask hole registered trademark. I'm still stunned that even worked. So I'm thinking about how to leverage that. So I'm defining ask hole. In the Urban Dictionary, it says ask holes are people who ask you for advice and then disregard it. And I'm really extending that in the leadership setting, right? And not only people asking for your advice, but those employees that come and ask you questions when they know the answer to them, or they ask you to do their work that they should do. They have the skills to do it. They have the resources. So really like slowing down, because you get a team full of assholes when you're in messy dynamic situations. And so really thinking about how, as a leader, instead of taking that all on, which is often what leaders do, right? Because we want to protect our staff. We want to make sure they don't burn out. We want to help them. Like the servant leadership definition is I help my teams all the time, which is really not what servant leadership is about. And so I just kept seeing this in my clients. And as I reflect back on my crazy journey of leadership, that asshole thing pops up a lot. And leaders needed some strategies to sort of still be supportive, but push back a little bit so that the employees are kind of showing those healthy, engaged, empowered behaviors and not the asshole behaviors.
It's interesting. As you're describing asshole, as one person pops into mind. And if that one person's listening, yeah, it's you.
Yeah, we've all been asshole, Dave. I'm like, totally true. Me too.
But it is a really interesting phenomenon that there are some people who will repeatedly ask for advice.
Yes.
Clearly need it.
Yeah.
And then ignore all the advice they get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can imagine that in leadership situations can actually become a really dangerous situation.
Yeah.
Both practically, but also humanly.
Yeah.
Because at some point, there's enough is going to be enough. And what happens then?
Yeah. Yeah. And it erodes relationships. Right? As a leader, if you're asking me to do stuff all the time, I don't feel respected. I think you're being lazy. Like I have all these stories in my head about that employee. And really that employee is just spinning. They're stressed. I sort of in the book, talk about 3 different characteristics of employees that are assholes. 1 is the perfectionist, 2, they're the pleaser, or 3, they're just insecure and they need validation. Well, how do we flip that, right? And there is a 4th category of those jerks that are just the wrong people in the wrong place, but really that's not the majority. The majority are people wanting to satisfy your demands, but then we have this gap, right? Where you're, as an employee, you're not meeting my standard. As a leader, I'm really frustrated with you, but we don't have the asshole trap framework until now to help sort of leaders slow the employee down so that they pull out of the spin and realize I actually do have the skills or the knowledge or the confidence to do this. Thanks for helping me figure that out.
So people who have businesses shaped a little like yours, they can be very diverse. And they all address completely different communities, if you like. And I'm interested to know, what does Kerry Burchill's people look like? Who do you serve? Yeah,
gosh, that's great. And, when I started, of course, education, person, unionized setting, like when I launched on my own, it was a big stretch for me. And in the marketing world, I don't know, Bob, what your philosophy is on this, but people really talk about niching, like getting really narrow on your people. And my people are broad. So I have police department, financial groups, healthcare, recruitment. I'm kind of going through the list in my head. An acquisition company. So just all over the place, city manager groups. So when I think about that, the commonality is these are leaders in messy, dynamic situations. So my work is in corporate settings, sometimes not for profit, sometimes for profit, generally teams that are like wanting to find a rhythm in the chaos and just needing someone to help them slow down. It often starts with, I don't know if I would say the word even culture, but someone in the group or in the company realizes, hey, things are messy. Can you help us? Under the cloak of leadership development, but it really ends up being more team coaching or the team identifying what they recognize they need to be better and to thrive. And then I sort of come in and call out the elephants in the room and help them recognize and put words on where their struggles are, and then some tools or things to help their behavior shift.
So there will be consultants listening or watching. If you're watching, well done. Not enough people watch the video who are possibly at the beginning of their journey of building their business. And I know you worked quite hard in the beginning to find a marketing approach that worked for you.
Yeah.
What does your go-to-market strategy look like now?
Yeah.
How do you actually discover and then convert those clients now.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. Definitely think about that still every day. So 100% of my business is referral. Now, people hear about me through referral and they'll validate me through social media, but I don't spend a ton of time on social media. I generally will do like 3 months of scheduled posts out, and I'm sure the algorithm would love me more if I checked in and, engaged more. But really, I try to keep with everyone saying, hey, who else do you know that can benefit from my services? And sometimes I'll close training with that, or I'll seed it, during breaks with people. So I think of my very first contract, which started the snowball of being busy today. I just hired an educational or a executive assistant. So I feel like, I'm arriving in sort of the growth of my business. So my first client, I went to one of those networking events, like it was a Lions Club or something like that. And, everybody goes around. I was still working full time in my healthcare organizational development role. And somebody came up to me after, because I introduced myself as a leadership consultant, and they came up after and said, hey, we're seeking proposals. We need someone to come in and sort of do a leadership development session. Can you submit a proposal? I go home, Bob. I look up the word proposal. I don't even know what a proposal is. I'm not kidding. And then had the courage I just attended a conference, and the MC of the conference was just a really dynamic, engaging, approachable person. And so I emailed her and said, hey, would you mind sharing proposals? Which I now realize was a little brazen, because it included her cost and in the consulting world, I don't know why we don't talk more about how much we charge, but it seems to be behind a veil. And she shared proposals, and I was like eyes wide open. I mean, it had brand colors and logos and all these things I didn't have. And so I ended up getting that gig, and I still have that company, that started in 2018. And so there is that networking piece, but really being able to say, who else do you know that can benefit from my services? And just put it out there and ask.
I think that's tremendously important for people to hear, because people don't tend to come beating a course to your door. People do have needs, but they don't necessarily put two and two together and think that you're the person.
Yeah.
So making that line of least resistance and asking the question, who do you know who needs what I do?
Yeah.
And being very observant to these opportunities, because they are all around us.
Well, and it's funny because that first company is my recruitment firm. Of course, recruiting firms are networked everywhere, right? Yeah. And it took me years with that firm to even say, hey, it dawned on me, you work with a lot of other companies that probably need some leadership development. So I literally, when it finally dawned on me that they would love to help me, they would love to give back, I actually created a PowerPoint slide with the leaders' names, and during the session typed in the companies that those leaders in my session said that they could introduce me to. And then the follow-up next month training, I crossed off who I was introduced and said, hey, Bob, you still told me that you'd introduce me to these companies. Where are we at with that? Bold. And they loved it. I mean, who knew?
The thing is, people love to be able to help other people. It's the most fulfilling thing in the world for anybody, unless you're some kind of narcissistic psychopath. Most people love helping people. You give them an opportunity to be helpful, they will love you for it.
Yes, right. And if I want to be helpful in my company and they want to be helpful, isn't that kind of the double whammy of let's sync, let's find some synergy in this.
Something I encourage people, and this is a little, might not be a ninja trick for you, but it's a ninja trick for me. When somebody's experienced a lot of value from them, simply asking the question, hey, do you know a couple of people who would benefit from the kind of work I do? The mistake most people make is they'll then gloss over it and they'll bridge to something else. At this point, shut your mouth and wait and see what happens. And you'll find that people will, given a moment, a couple of names will always spring up. Huh. But if you fill that gap, they'll just gloss past it. It's spooky how easily that can work for people.
Can I share a ninja trick? I haven't paused. That whole slow down thing that you just talked about that's where the power is. A ninja trick I just discovered recently is I bought a $10 lavalier, the pin-on microphone that plugs into my iPhone. And when I'm done speaking, I'll just go around to the audience, because there's always people that come up to you after and, rah about it. I'll say, hey, would you mind just a quick video of that? And nobody ever has said no. And so I'll get these 15, 30-second video clips of people saying what they took away, what they learned. I mean, I just let them talk about whatever they want. Super powerful, like little nuggets in, I guess they're technically short videos, but they're also really great branding on my website videos. So, yeah, ninja.
What's interesting listening to you, I think referrals are great, but something that can really impact our referrals is the personal brand or the leader brand and the credibility that we invest in transmitting and amplifying. And I think this is something that you're seeing working really well for you as well, that on the one hand, you're investing in the brand positioning, the visibility, not having to go nuts. But what that means is that the referral wheels are just more well lubricated. It's easier for people to refer you. It's easier for people to say yes to those referrals. And the proposals convert more readily because people are kind of excited that it's the Kerry Burchill, author of The Asshole Trap. It all kind of comes together.
It sounds funny when you even say it like that, but yeah.
This is my business. I know what I'm seeing.
Like, who's the author, Bob? Like, yeah.
But I think this is the thing. We all have the small me mentality, but externalizing this into almost an external celebrity version of ourselves that exists in a parallel universe is really powerful. And betting on that person is much easier than betting on this person.
Yeah.
And that's whenever I'm talking about a personal brand, I'll often put the Kerry Burchill in the beginning, because it kind of triggers people to think hard. Well, hang on a minute. Yes, this matters. I was speaking to somebody the other day, and I can imagine this works for you, where if somebody was trying to decide whether to hire you or hire somebody else, the price was the same, features and benefits were the same, the spec was the same, they'd get fired for hiring the other person because of the leadership brand that you have in the market.
Yeah, no, that there's some legitimacy that I think draws people into it. Like, I have a PhD. People never use my title. I wouldn't want them to anyways, but it's not that educational stuff that they lean on. It is the presence, like that, the authenticity, the vulnerability. I'm just talking layman terms to people saying like, yeah, I've been in your shoes, or, we've all dealt with messy situations, right? And to be able to just connect to the heart, it makes the head decision way easier. But if you come across looking too polished, and I never wear suits to my stuffy events, like I'm going to be me, and that's going to help you connect, and it's going to want to make you engage with me and the services even more.
So I'd like to ask about your book. So number one, well, you're an academic. So writing a book, I can imagine it was difficult, but it wasn't a killer.
Yeah. I don't know that I'm good at writing. Even after all these years, and that's not the small me talking. It's the objective looking in at Kerry Burchill talking. But it's funny because I was starting to outline the book, and I still didn't have the Asshole framework figured out. And so I met with one of our shared colleagues and friends, Susanna Ray, and she was working on business frameworks at the time. And she's like, well, what are the, 5 or 6 or 3 things that you want people to kind of go through? And I'm like, well, hang on a second. I know exactly what those are, because they're the outline of my chapters in my book. She's like, well, you have your framework right there, but I hadn't framed it that way in my book yet. And so there was this sort of merging of 2 things. Like I was really reflecting and doing a lot of brainstorming and outlining for my book, not the writing part yet. And then meeting with her really helped me crystallize like, hey, I am actually introducing a framework, and the chapters are already there, but I wasn't calling it a framework. And it wasn't like the meat and potatoes of what I can go to clients and say like, hey, I can do some training on this, or let me help you with these things.
Yeah. So how do you leverage the book? Because a book is great, but if it sits on your shelf, it's like a car you never take out to drive. Yeah. From a business owner's perspective, a book is a powerful tool. Powerful tools are only powerful when you use them. So how do you use your book?
Yeah, great question. Couple of neat things because I think it was last February when it first came out, so it hasn't even been a year yet. I did not go with a publishing company or a marketing person. Like, this has been 100% me. I recorded it in my closet with the lavalier microphone. Like I did the audio, I did the like 100% me. So my strategies may not be as refined as somebody like yourself with so much skill Bob could recommend.
What gets the job done is my philosophy.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, then check on that. So I do about 25% of my time is spent on keynote speaking. So I've been seeding a little more, like it would be really advantageous if everybody in the audience had a copy of the book. So I've had a couple of conferences where everybody's bought a copy of the book, and I've gone in early and signed the books with a note. And I kind of joke like they're fortune cookies. I try to vary what the notes are, and it's generally a thank you for your leadership, or thank you for leading in, or thank you something, right? Like, leadership's hard. I think there's a space for being grateful that people are doing this hard work. So one is putting it out there in conferences. In the other conferences where people haven't like bought whole scale, I'll bring like 40, 50 books with me. And if I run out of books, which has happened, then I'll email or I'll mail people the books and just cover the shipping myself. So it's really that idea of more touch points with people. So I'm signing it, they get the book. There's that side of things. I also, right now, I'm doing a pro bono book club study with a healthcare group of leaders. And that's really informing my second group. So super valuable to hear this group talk through the chapters and what they're figuring out and what questions they have that's not in the book, which part of that led me to do the handbook, which is not a lot of work, but a really good, beneficial, questions and just page of journal writing almost. Mm. So leveraging that, and this, I'm starting to launch in 2025 online courses, which will merge the handbook and the book with some video content. And then once a month, I'll have a Q&A live session with people to kind of leverage that. So I'm testing the waters really to see where is the book. I definitely went through my contact list, like the people like you, right? That, here's my book. I'd love to send a copy to you. So they went internationally. And then people are, of course, grateful and sharing pictures back that I'm leveraging on social media. But really, I definitely have work because of the book. That's probably my only example of things not being referral. So I guess indirectly through the book, some high-level leaders have read it and kind of went, wow, I really like this, which is super humbling for me. And as a result, they've had me come in and do some leadership development with large groups of, like hundreds and hundreds of leaders, like really, really lucky. So, yeah.
So am I right in interpreting that you're actually funding getting the book into people's hands a lot of the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is something that's underappreciated, is just waiting for people to buy your books. That's not necessarily the best approach.
Yeah. I think I want to say like $4 US, the whole book. If I buy it at the author cost, when you think of marketing, my gosh, you can spend, I've got a friend who did the hybrid book publishing, and I think she spent, the original estimate was between $6,000 and $10,000 US. $4 a book compared to that. Like, I could send it out to lots of people for that cost. And I think there's just something with like my messy handwriting on that envelope. I got a little cool branding envelope with the copy of the title page of the book on the front of the envelope. So it's just fun, and people see my handwritten right. Yeah. So I think that's, again, just the connection, right? It's not all polished and perfect, but it's me, and you get me. That's what it is.
So I'm interested with the conference side of things, how you're selecting those. How do you decide where you're going to show up? Because I think a lot of people fall into what you might call the obvious trap of, I'm in leadership or I'm in marketing, so I go to marketing conferences or leadership conferences. How are you approaching that?
Yeah. Again, it started with referrals. I never really saw myself as a keynote speaker. Like, I'm comfortable speaking, but that wasn't a career path that I kind of went down. So a colleague that I used to have before I went on my own is president of an association. And she said, hey, we need speakers. I thought of you. And it kind of went from there. And so once you get in with one conference, there's the conference organizer, and they are over several conferences, or they know people in other associations. So there's this whole networking of conference organizers. So once I had the initial conference, then it put me in front of other people or other leaders, and that's just kind of grown. So it started with medical practices and went into like surgery, and then ocular, like vision related things. And then I did volunteer to do a free one here in San Antonio that then in education. And that association, 2 years later, I was kind of miffed about that one, honestly, Bob, because it was like, I do this for free. And then they invited me to present again the next year in a different city for free. And I declined. I said, you got me once for free. I didn't really get any business out of it. Well, 2 years later, there's a group of education superintendent and principals, and they fly me out to Vail to speak and got paid. So I think there's some value in, where are some areas where you can be on stage and you have a legitimate expertise, but more, who do you know? We all belong to associations. I'm part of our local coaching chapter. I have my MCC certification. So who do you know in those things that, can get you on the stage, and again, the referral thing, and it'll snowball.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, their ego can get in the way with speaking. And what you described, I think, is initially you want to get on stages to get the visibility and the authority. And then when things start to get busy, we can use a fee to throttle demand a little bit.
Yeah. And going full circle to the book, I use those initial speaking gigs as a chance to float out the language. Like I could sense, if I look back to a couple of years ago when I first started keynoting, I could sense when the audience wasn't engaged, or I would ask the conference person for the feedback, and there was, sometimes some tough feedback to swallow. And that helped me know how to frame the book, or what was landing and what wasn't. So all of that, super helpful. Like just get out there, lean into it.
That's really useful. So I guess there's a danger of people listening thinking, Kerry's super competent. She's got it all locked in. And I know that everybody has their Achilles heel. Yeah. And I'd love to know, within your work, where do you actually struggle? Which part of being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, do you find tiresome or troublesome?
Yeah. Gosh, there's lots, isn't there? I hate the IT stuff. Like I actually have a fat microphone here to the side that I'm not even using because I can't get it to sound good. I spent thousands of dollars, went with one of those marketing, groups, and they say like, hey, just order everything on this list. And I did. I mean, I've got this fancy camera sitting here. I don't use it anymore because I can't get it to zoom in so my head's the right size. Like it's just the IT stuff. Oh, so frustrating for me. I was telling Bob before, just for your listeners, before we started, he was asking for lead magnets, and we're going to share this Ask Hole trap quiz that's super fun for you to do. And I said, hang on a second. I don't know if that link works anymore. Because yesterday when I was doing the back of my website, I wasn't patient enough waiting for a block to load. And I thought it was just a mistake block. So I did the quick delete. I mean, I'm probably going to spend 8 hours on that bloody thing, reformatting it today. I didn't even save the content of what I had in there. So
you're using Thrive on your website, aren't you?
Pardon me?
Are you using Thrive on your website?
I have Wix.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
Yeah.
Talk to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. One of those new things I shouldn't have picked. Like I hear people saying that there's way easier formats than Wix. So yeah, what do I know?
That's tomorrow's problem.
Right. Totally.
Yeah. I think that tech thing, that's a universal problem. And I think we can't be great at everything. And I think it's important to acknowledge that sometimes you need help, but also a lot of people can sometimes put significant importance in things that aren't important, because this hasn't caused you huge barriers to success or to growth.
Right.
A lot of people will use these as excuses for not doing the difficult things.
Yeah.
And none of the technical things are emotionally challenging. They're just a lot of the time excuses for not making the calls, having the Zoom calls, building relationships, because these are the things that actually drive us.
Right. Like I'm just using my Mac computer camera. Like I wish I would have just peeled off some of that fancy stuff. I mean, I think that's the imposter taking over. Oh, you need the fancy stuff, and oh, you need this, and oh, you need that. I don't need the imposter talking to me. I need to just be me.
Yeah,
and so
you should just mail me that nice Sony camera I saw.
Right. Like I hope that it's going to help me develop a hobby. Yeah, I'll actually take pictures.
Let's get into the fun bit. So I have this new section of the show that we're just entering now where I get to be really nosy. And so far it's been great fun. What I'd really love to hear, and I warn people in advance, dear listener or viewer, so that I'm not springing it on Kerry. But what are 3 tools, tactics, mental models, doesn't matter to me, but 3 things I need to know that I can take action on today. So what have you got for me, Kerry?
All right, here we go. First thing, and I say this all the time, the hardest skill in leadership. And I think that relates because we're leading companies, we're leading people to whatever their thrive and amplify space is. Active listening. Mm-hmm. So when you meet with clients or when you talk with people about their pain points, we instantly go into, oh my goodness, how can I help them? What can I do to be of service? And that's the response mode, which is tricky because if we're not actively listening, so, they can share their pain points. And if I'm not engaging back on that, then the person talking is really not having a space to develop their awareness and acceptance that they need my help. If I jump to, oh yeah, I hear your pain point and here's what I can do for you, it's going to be too raw. They haven't really marinated on that acceptance of, yeah, things are a problem. These pain points, wow, they're bigger as I slow down to think about them. I really need some help. Like we have to do the active listening first. Super hard because we're just so invested on getting that client, making the sale, doing all that stuff. How do we just slow down and be in that space of active listening with that client so that they hear how much they really need us?
I can see so many situations where A, I need to pay attention to that, and B, how it could be really powerful for, like you said, people being able to experience the mirror. Because it's useful in so many ways. I need to reflect on that. That's a deeper one than I've had in the last 2 calls.
Yeah, good. It's super powerful, right? I always say awareness is the catalyst to change. They're not going to change and engage with us if there's just not that awareness first, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm not hearing, and then I'm going to pitch some stuff that may or may not land on where they're really at, right? Like I need to meet them where they're at and we go up together, not me sprinkling down my wisdom at their level of whatever it is. I've got to meet them where they're at. And if I don't actively listen, then I'm not really going to slow down myself and hear where they're at too. So yeah, super powerful.
I think also in the beginning, people tell us where they think they're at.
Yes, you're right.
And we need to give them space to actually get to where they actually are.
Yes. Yeah. In my book, I talk about the top of the spin, right? So whatever I throw at you as those pain points is not really it. We need to help people slow down because the bottom of the spin, like you're saying, Bob, are really, that's where they're having the awareness and the vulnerability and the openness to lean in. Yeah.
That's really good. So what's next?
Okay. Second one is getting voice of customer. So that's a lean methodology term. So in the space that you are working at with clients, so this is during your engagements, find some opportunity for your clients to go get voice of customer. So manufacturing plant I work with, I forgot to list that as another really cool experience. So we'll have groups of like 20 leaders and they're wrestling with getting floor associates to just do their job. They're going through huge renovation, lots of millions and millions of dollars, and it's chaotic. And the leaders are just thinking, why won't this happen? I need them to, they're part union, not union. It's messy. And we can sit in that training room all day long and develop leadership skills. But if we haven't gone out to the floor and asked associates everything from, how valuable is your performance evaluation system? What's your favorite thing about working here? It doesn't matter what the question is, but have your clients go out and ask people. And that saves you from the consultant being like the voice of judgy, or maybe you're telling things that they're not ready to hear yet. When your leaders go out and hear things from the horse's mouth, it like skyrockets their growth and development. And then of course you look like an all-star And all you've done is waited for them to come back with the data. Like, awesome.
What I love about that is it's pivoting you from adversarial to advocacy.
Yes.
Very, very naturally, because they go out initially thinking adversarial, but they come back as advocates, which is voodoo. It's really, obviously, I'm not a leadership development coach, so I can use language like voodoo.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's very slick and very powerful and efficient and effective, most importantly.
And invariably people come back a little surprised by what they learn. And that's where the magic is, right? Is when we assume, which we all do, the world's going at, I kind of say, the speed of life. Things are fast and we make assumptions in our effort to just stabilize and figure things out. And until we slow down and ask the questions, I'm going to maintain that story in my head, which, in lots of cases is not 100% accurate anyway.
I can actually see how this can be applied to personal relationships, to client relationships, to marketing. It's potentially useful in many, many ways. Just a very different perspective on something as crude as market research.
Yeah.
But it's about genuine, honestly having relationships which are valuable. And the more valuable I can become to my clients, my potential clients, any relationship.
Yeah.
But I say valuable with a big V. I'm delivering value, genuine value.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
People crave that connection, right? And so how often in your client's busy world, they're going fast. How often do they spend 20 minutes of just going and asking a couple of simple questions, right? The people that they're engaging with are like, wow, talk about value. Like, you cared enough to ask my opinion on whether or not we have good food in the food vendors or in the vending machines, right? Like, it doesn't matter what the question is. People just love that connection, and it is capital V value.
Yeah. So what have we got next? Last
nugget. This is my message that I really want all of your listeners and viewers to hear. You are the whole package. You're the whole package. Yeah, just breathe that in, right? So I was talking with a friend of mine who's transitioning from a full-time job into our sort of work the other day. And he was saying, it's like, I think that 2 years I'm going to be ready to launch on my own. And I need to get these certifications and these things and these. And I said to him, hang on, you've just listed probably $20,000 of after-tax dollars on programs and certificates, never mind time. Like, you've seen things. There's something that's motivating you to make this transition. You know how you can help. Just lean into it. You're the whole package already. We don't need all these big, fancy, 18 certifications. Nobody ever asks about my academic background. Nobody ever asks about my coaching credential. Like, are there some nuggets in there that I think in my own journey have been valuable? Yes. Are there other pieces that you can fall in the rabbit hole and chase down? I was talking to another woman yesterday, and she's got, I don't know how much she's even paying for these things. I do not want to know. She's got a group of 4 tax-related accountant, business, whatever advisors. She's like, what accounting software do you use? And what about this? And what about that? I'm like, Excel? I'm sure that I could go fancier, but is my tax program broken? I don't need to go fancy. Like, there's just so many things to open your wallet and spend money on, and just pulling back and saying, wait a minute, I'm the whole package here. I may want to put a bow on it, but I don't have to, because I'm the whole package already.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's lots of reasons people can put off betting on themselves. Yeah. Lots of things they think they need to have before they take the personal risk. When I say the personal risk, putting yourself out there. People are looking for excuses to not do that. And certifications can do that. Tech can do that. There's an awful lot of reasons people will put artificial barriers in their way. But at the end of the day, your comfort zone is not going to expand. It's not going anywhere until you start spending some time on the edge.
Yes.
And that's where all the magic happens.
That's exactly it. I wish I would have launched my business decades before I did. It has been such a joy. I'm working less. I'm having a bigger impact. I'm loving life more. Just what a treat.
So you mentioned the AskHole trap quiz, the AskHole, dealing with AskHole behaviors and AskHole traps. Let's get one thing clear. AskHole employees and A-hole employees are not the same thing. Take the quiz. That was a lot of fun. I haven't done it.
It's like 2 minutes. It's super fun, super fast. You can sort of see how much of your time you're spending in the AskHole trap. And you can reflect on this at home, at work. Like, we all live in a paradigm where the AskHole traps are everywhere.
So, Kerri, if people are listening thinking, I need a bit more Kerry Burchill in my life, how can they make that happen?
Oh my goodness. Yes. I would love to just chat about your journey. So I'm always open to the networking conversations or contractual work. So kerryburchill.com, not super hard.
Kerri, you have been awesome. This has been great fun. I'm so glad we finally did it. You will have to come back sometime soon, maybe with the new camera. We'll see. But for now, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, what a treat, Bob. Thank you.
So you at home, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this show, which I hope you have, then I would invite you to leave a 5-star review. That's 5, like the fingers on your hand, star reviews, wherever you listen to podcasts. If it's YouTube, it's a thumbs up and a comment and a like and all the rest of it. If you did enjoy the show, you will love the Personal Brand Business Roadmap. It's 50 pages of everything you need to start, scale, or fix your expert business. Just click the link in the show notes or visit amplifyme.agency/roadmap. Thank you again at home for listening. And Kerri, thank you. You've been awesome.
You too, Bob.